And the feedback that I have been getting in sharing this with people, the various iterations as I continue to practice explaining what I'm thinking, is also so exhilarating because you're not expecting it. It's coming. It's valid. It's coming from people you really admire. So you got to pay attention. Really helpful.
What feedback? What are people saying?
Mostly, I don't understand what you're talking about. We're doing a chair change.
So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The
This
vantage.
is nice. Yeah.
The perspective.
How did this idea for this retreat come about for you?
Hosting
Oh, I like this.
my first retreat in August 2022 was a complete game changer. It changed everything. I realized that when we meet in person with people and it's facilitated well, the amount of growth is just incredible. I was really terrified all the way up until the first day.
Did you sleep the day?
No. Weeks leading up. I told you, I kept waking up in the middle of the night, going through all the things that could go wrong. Incredible how that keeps you up. But yeah, I was really nervous. I was kind of like trying to memorize certain things back in that time. I was like really clinging to certain like words that I wanted to say. But in the end, I was like, okay, this is happening right now.
So this was August 2022. You did 4 retreats in Tennessee. You know, how many people per retreat? 15?
20.
20. So 4 retreats, 80 people. You get this idea called Here Goes Nothin. How did you get the idea?
I was preparing for an interview in this very room and decided to leave all my notes aside and go in as me. And that was like just a spontaneous decision, but I now recognize there was a lot leading up to it. I decided to go into a really important interview as me with no notes. And the person on the other side recognized it, and it was an amazing interview. And it was flowing. I was like, wow, this is what it can be like. I can gamble on myself and it can work. And it was that little mantra of here goes nothing. Like, I'm not really ready for this. I'm not ready to let go of my papers, but I'm going to give it a go. That I then ran home and like looked on GoDaddy. Is it available as a domain? And somehow it was available. Here goes nothing with a G.com, not available. Here goes nothing.com, available. I was like,
It's a sign.
fate. $12.99. So I bought it, and I think I
Best $12.99 you ever spent.
Yeah. I think I sent you the screenshot. I was like, I didn't say anything. I was just like, here it is.
Here goes nothing.
And it felt so, I felt so much conviction in it. I've had little like aha moments in the past and be like, oh, this is a good idea, and bought a domain. I have plenty of shitty domains. But this one I felt different about. It was like, this encapsulates everything that I'm at right now. I need to take that risk. I need to take that step.
So you throw away the notes, you come into this room, you conduct an interview with somebody, and then now take me through, how did this lead to Costa Rica?
You know, these conferences are not cheap, and they're sometimes a little bit hard to justify. So you really have to, you know, you have to go through a process of deciding that, yes, this is the right time for me for this kind of thing. You had recommended House of Beautiful Business, which I had never heard about. It's an organization that helps leaders and visionaries be more beautiful in their business. I was like, this is intriguing. You read the material like, oh, I kind of resonate with that. I'm not sure what this is. But you had endorsed it, you had attended, and you loved it, and you said, these are your people, Matt. I was like, okay, if Jordan says that, I'll give it a try. But again, still wasn't ready to pull the trigger, right? So I got this, maybe I'm gonna do it. And I sent an email to my dear friend Antonio, who lives in Spain, who hosts the largest vacation rental convention in Europe. I was like, hey, Antonio, would you be interested in going to this thing? I think it could be cool for both of us. And he and I have been on a journey together too, as leaders in our respective continents. But he was like, yeah, and it just so happens I live like 1 hour from the boat that we can take from Marbella, Spain, to Tangier, Morocco. Fly into Malaga, I'll pick you up, you'll stay at my house, me and Christina will make you dinner, and we'll go off to the next day. I was like, okay, now I'm definitely going, right? You just put the idea out into the universe, and somehow like Antonio's like, yeah, I'll definitely go. So then I pulled the trigger, and I was like, okay, now I'm going. But at this point, I had no idea what it was going to be. We arrive in Tangier. It's freaking intimidating. this place. I'd never been to Africa before. I'd never been to a country where women wear the burqas. So I had only seen that in like movies. And without one word of Arabic, I was disconnected from these people, and I was really kind of scared by it, to be honest. Like walking through the streets the first few mornings was intimidating. Until I learned the phrase marhaba.
What? Marhaba?
Good morning. Which just opened up all the doors. You say marhaba just walking down the street, and people are like, oh, marhaba. Oh, I was like, this is great. I've got the password. So the marhaba changed a lot in terms of my comfort level. But yeah, arriving at the event itself, it was in this big, beautiful, open-air presidential palace. The stage was like built almost like a catwalk through the courtyard with these like beautiful tangerine trees and these big red like curtains flowing from the balcony. I was like, what the heck is this? And everybody that I met was so different from one another. So different from the people that I normally work around, but they were all so interesting.
Introduce us to a couple people.
I get there, and there's a young guy sitting by the fountain, and I just introduced myself, and he said, oh, my name's Richard, and I said, okay, started talking about something, and just a bit of foreshadowing?
Yes.
Is that the word?
Yeah.
This guy was a keynote speaker at the event, but I didn't know this at the time. And so he kind of shared like his interest in AI and shared how he lives in Kenya. And as I'm learning the story, he begins kind of sharing with me his story. I was like, whoa, this guy outed Meta and OpenAI.
I've seen this guy. Yeah.
He's now one of the most influential people in AI, according to Time magazine. But he was approached by a journalist who asked him about if they were exploiting workers, basically. And he was like, yes, of course they are. And he suddenly was thrust into the spotlight. Those companies left.
Whistleblower.
Yes, Kenya. They left Kenya. They had chosen Kenya for these very particular conditions. English, cost of living, things like that. So they were legitimately exploiting these workers. And they all left because he outed them. They moved to a new country. So he formed the equivalent of like a union of people to defend their rights.
And these people were like validating whether AI had done the right thing, or whether when AI said, oh, this picture is a picture of an elephant.
They were training.
Yes, they were training AI.
Yes, as humans.
So you met this guy at a fountain.
I met this guy, and he was awesome. He ended up losing his wallet that night, and he and I were like looking for the wallet the entire rest of the trip. But that was the first guy I met. I was like, wow, this is an interesting guy. I then walk over to the bar to get a drink, and this Irani guy comes up. We just started chatting, and turns out he went to Princeton University grad school, which is where I grew up. He knew my father's shop.
Not a grad school, but in Princeton, New Jersey.
No, I did not grow up in grad school. He knew my father's shop. He knew the ram that my father's shop keeps outside. So we formed this interesting like connection, and we're just chatting. And as luck would have it, he is another keynote speaker. He is the world leading expert on nuclear disarmament in the Middle East.
Wow.
Imad. And Imad and his colleague, she's Israeli. They go to the United Nations and they make the case for nuclear disarmament. And I'm like, where am I right now? It was just so mind-blowing in that sense. And everybody that I met at House of Beautiful Business was some degree of that new for me.
You know, I'm thinking about, because I was at a version of the conference that was in Portugal, not Morocco, the year before. And I remember one of the people who stands out to me is this guy who was a art dealer. Like he sold Picassos, basically. Picasso, Rembrandt, like Monet's. And we were talking about, I was kind of sharing my fear about proposing contracts that were a significant amount of money. And he was talking about how, you know, how easily he would just call up a potential buyer and be like, hey, Matt, you know, it's whoever, for whatever his name is, I've got a Rembrandt here. It's gorgeous. It's going to fit your collection. It's going to cost you $250 million. It's no problem, da-da-da-da-da. And just the ease with which it rolled off his tongue was so inspiring to me.
Unlike anything you'd seen before.
Unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And I was like, wow, there are people who can talk about that sum of money in such a casual way. And here I am being like, should I charge 5,000 or 5,150. You know?
Yeah. It's just startling.
Yeah.
Just breaks your old paradigm. The entire, the majority of the programming took place in the open air courtyard.
Wow.
It was all outside. The weather was
Tangerine trees.
perfect blue sky. Weather was perfect. Sunny. It was
People standing on stage or where?
sitting. People, very organic. It wasn't like a whole bunch of rows of chairs. Some people were sitting. Some people were standing. Some people would give talks from certain places. Other people would be having a cup of tea and watching from the balcony. It was just very different. And that also really impressed me. It's like, oh, an event can be designed this way to be different in a way that I had never thought about designing my experiences.
So you keep saying this phrase. I know we both know the phrase, but for the sake of people, the medium is the message. Help us understand what that means to you?
The experience of going into that conference, the space, all the gazillion of little decisions that went into creating that space, for me was so much more important than any lesson that I learned there explicitly, anybody on stage. It just felt different. And I loved it. And I think that we all have those kinds of experiences occasionally with one type of business or another. You can feel that. Like, I want that. Not only do I want that, I think I want to make that. I think I want to make that back at home, my version of that. And then I came home, I was like, oh my God, we could do this. I could do anything right now, but we could do a version of this that would be freaking cool.
I just want to say, we know each other well, but what's striking about listening to your story now compared to how it's usually done is it's like, oh, come to Costa Rica and learn from Jordan and Erwin, and Matt just happens to be the guy who's organizing it. But now what I'm actually hearing is the root of your vision, right? This is like, oh, I see what could be possible, and it brings this whole other energy to it, rather than, oh yeah, I just booked a hotel in Costa Rica. And it's like, no, the story is giving it momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also an interesting part about our relationship, because I have always basically, when I work with you guys, I just sit down and I'm taking mental notes and processing because it's so great. But now I'm like, okay, detach a bit and have the vision yourself in order to be compatible and work together. And that's a different.
We're taking the tricycles off, the tricycle wheels off.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's different.
So you come home.
I cannot stop thinking about what a new event, a new retreat could look like that I could put together. And I started dreaming it up. And one of the instincts was like, oh, well, I don't know the right property to host anywhere near me. And it just so happened that Erwin was like, oh, have you checked out this venue, this award-winning venue in Costa Rica? I was like, no, I hadn't. Something as simple as that, considering I did not ever search for something like that. Did never cross my mind. Now crossed my mind. So all that kind of piece, for instance, where could this event take place? Returning to you guys and saying, would you be open to participating? That was a huge new ask for me. Wasn't sure how you would respond.
I just want to quickly pause and just talk about the backcasting piece of this, right? Like we talked about before, forecasting is what is realistic. Backcasting is let's create steps that don't even exist yet. Let's put the puzzle together with pieces that we know is missing. So what I'm kind of hearing you say is you had this vision of we're going to have a retreat and it's going to be so much different than anything they've ever done.
Yeah, it's going to blow people's minds.
And the natural forecasting question is, well, where's it going to be, in what space?
Yeah.
And it's
practical stuff.
Yeah, and the backcasting is, I don't know, but it's going to be great. And then all of a sudden, someone just kind of haphazardly says, hey, have you checked out this place?
Yeah.
And then the puzzle piece comes in.
Yeah.
So the puzzle piece is coming in, and you're kind of assembling it out of thin air, we would say, or I would say out of imagination. But you're able to put it together, but you didn't know where it was going to be in advance. You just kind of had this idea.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't even know what specifically it could be. I still can't really explain it. But I know I'm really excited about it. And that, I think, Jordan, is the best thing that has come out of all of our work together. Is I am really excited about this, and I'm really feeling like a new kind of energy that I do remember once in my life when I was getting started. But I didn't know how to get that back. And now I'm feeling that again, and I know that it will work because I feel it that way.
And a new kind of that energy, right?
New, deeper, wider, and more elevated
And
all at once.
honestly, in this moment, I can feel it too, and I'm sure people who are listening can feel it too.
Yeah.
Because it's captivating, and it's like this. These are these words. I'm going to throw words at it, but it's not the words, but it's passion, it's charisma, it's conviction, it's vision. We would use those words to describe it, but it's not flippant here. It's like I can actually hear your passion, your charisma, your conviction, your vision being expressed through this idea.
Yeah, my heart is literally like racing a little bit right now. It is.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah. So you found this place. What's the name of the place?
Imaloa Institute.
Imaloa Institute. Tell us a little bit about it.
Small, intimate, personal, set in a Costa Rican jungle. So
Oh, you're in the jungle.
this is like legit nature all at once.
And you have monkeys and sloths and parrots and whatever else in the trees.
The rainforest overlooking the ocean. And just the kind of pampering of a resort in Costa Rica. Like, I think that's important too. We'll have plenty of downtime. People can get massages.
It's wild. I mean, this is my kind of editorial, but what I notice and what I believe is like in businesses, once upon a time you were in an office with someone all the time. And so you would get not just the professional work, but you would get a little bit of the, let's go for lunch, have a coffee, chit chat, how's your family? But in this hybrid new world, people spend time working together, but they don't spend time getting to know each other.
Yeah.
So there's such an important need for these kinds of spaces where you can actually go and host your whole company together to do a little bit of work and a little bit of, this kind of team bonding stuff. Not even in a unofficial way. I think like if you have a hybrid company, you're going to need to come together like this once a year at least, so that those ties bind. Otherwise, it's just work and all the benefits of work.
I want people to be able to go somewhere new with themselves in a similar way that I did. For that to be okay and actually admired and like championed, like this is the future. That was a really important kind of support system, and that it's really hard to do on your own. I want people to be in an environment with the facilitating, with other people who are like-minded in this sense, the actual setting itself, that they feel okay, that they're willing to go there and be willing to not know what's going to happen next. That's kind of scary, but also, as we've found, that's like the best part.
Is it personal? Is it business? Is it some combination? Like, what is it?
It's all one. I mean, let's be honest. It's all one. I view it as a business. It's a business event. I love coming at business from new angles like this. Like, I love reading and learning, but so much of the stuff out there is just boring as hell. I'm attracted to a new, kind of tickly, kind of new way of learning, new kinds of growth. You guys, for me, were the perfect source, the perfect resource. So I want to share that with people.
I mean, we all know that I'm involved in this, but I'm going to still play the part of like, it's what strikes me as so interesting about it. And honestly, it's genuinely exciting for me as a collaborator here is that we have all the things of personal retreat, which, like you're saying, lots of people have been on yoga retreats or meditation retreats or even just vacations where you go to the beach, you spend a couple days, you think about something, and then you come back to work. You have this personal retreat aspect in a business context. And I think that is really unique. Like, what are the opportunities out there for business people to get together and think about their business in this quieter, more slowed down setting where you're kind of surrounded by something that's outside of the norm? It feels very unique that you are going on retreat, but bringing the business side to it. I think that those combinations of things strikes me as being very innovative.
I love building community. And I do know that to build community, you have to have really strong feelings about something, an appreciation or a whole value for something. This is true about the neighborhood that I community built in, the online space that I community built in, and I think for this too. You need to really stand for something. You need to feel really passionate about it. You need to be able to communicate that to people so they can come and either resonate or not.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this with the bigger podcast because the podcast is also called Here Goes Nothin, like this podcast that we're on right now. And then this retreat is called Here Goes Nothin, and the community is called Here Goes Nothin. So
but you got to cut the G out of the end.
Here Goes Nothin.
Yeah.
Here Goes Nothin. So here's all these different components of Here Goes Nothin that are getting put together. And it really, I think, is cool that all of these we're watching the journey unfold in real time. Like that's for me, like maybe we're being a little bit salesy, but it's not really salesy because we don't have a finished product. It's in evolution.
Yeah.
And I find that so exciting as an outsider. Like, you're a client and a friend, but I'm still really engaged by watching this thing grow.
And the feedback that I have been getting in sharing this with people, the various iterations as I continue to practice explaining what I'm thinking, is also so exhilarating because you're not expecting it. It's coming. It's valid. It's coming from people you really admire. So you got to pay attention. Really helpful.
What feedback? What are people saying?
Mostly, I don't understand what you're talking about. It's true. Yeah. I get it. Thanks for tuning in. You can follow our journey and attend upcoming retreats at heregoesnothin.com. Subscribe to Here Goes Nothin across podcast platforms as well. We have some world-class creativity coming soon. As always, my email is matt with 2 T's at heregoesnothin.com.